Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Cheddar. You know what I want to do on the show. I want to enlighten, I want to inspire, and I want to empower you to be your best self. Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we are talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and how it affects different people. And you know what? It also affects our first responders. My guest today is James Meuer, and he's a retired paramedic, firefighter, and fire chaplain. So we are going to get some first-hand stories today. Let me tell you just a little bit about James. He has spent 26 years as a paramedic firefighter before having to retire due to injuries as well as PTSD. But you know what? He grew up as an Army brat, and he knew then that he wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. He did go on to study at the University of California at Davis, where he received his bachelor's in chemistry. Now, of course, there's been some ups and downs and rounds, and as you can imagine, being a paramedic brought on some wear and tear on the body. And there are some stories that go along with that. But I love the fact that he continued to persevere. He became a fire chaplain. Now, there is a certification that you can get, Critical Incident Stress Debriefing, the CISM, and he's certified and continued to give his time and his help with those who are also suffering with PTSD. Now, that's the quick and the fast of it, but I want to give him some time to talk about it because there's nothing like hearing it firsthand. So you know what I'm about to say. Get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee, get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, James. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Oh, good morning. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Now, I love the fact that you are a first responder. I have several first responders in my family as well, and you guys are truly brave. And you know, it takes a certain personality, a certain soul to want to do that. So thank you so much for the service while you were participating in paramedicine. Now, I just read all of these things about you, but there's nothing like hearing it from the person themselves. Can you tell us a little bit, we're going to back all the way up, about wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon? Why orthopedics?
It was like I was in, it was like 4th or 5th grade, and we were learning about the skeleton, and, you know, we got extra credit for learning bones, and so I learned them all, and it just enticed me. It was just so interesting to me. I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I just took everything towards that. I started reading. I got the Grey's Anatomy book, not the TV show,
right?
The book. And I started looking through that and reading that and finding the body and just taking all my studies towards that. Yeah, I was going to be a doctor. And and I got a little sidetracked. You know, I became a paramedic to help pay for med school, and of course med school is more expensive than what a paramedic makes, but I loved being a paramedic. And for all first responders, first, Doctor, thank you for your kind words for me and for all first responders. Yeah, I got to say, for all of them out there still working, man, God bless y'all. Just stay strong out there, and
be careful.
It does be careful. Exactly. It does take a special breed. We say we are a crazy bunch of guys and girls out there. And we get up every day. We love the job. We do. I mean, I talk to so many medics and firefighters. And I can speak from the EMS, Emergency Medical Services, for police and fire, private ambulance companies. I've worked for them both. Have a lot of police officer friends and dispatchers. We got to include dispatchers in with first responders because they're also associated with PTSD.
Absolutely. So yes, I definitely have a love for, you know, if your line is blue, yellow or red, there is definitely a place for you in my heart, and I know that the ups and downs, it's a special place. So you guys are, one person that's definitely praying for you, and I don't need to know you in order to have prayed for you. So it is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, you talked a little bit about having PTSD, and you are so right. I think many times people think that post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is only associated with our veterans, like with our military personnel when they come home, or that you have been like in a bad car accident or something like that, not realizing that it doesn't have to be just that. It could be so much more. And you've kind of touched on that in your book, Damaged, a First Responder's Experience with Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Can you tell us a little bit about your understanding of what PTSD is?
Post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm going to back up. Let's go. I think we first started hearing about it with the military, and we all thought that it was strictly a military thing, just for soldiers. Back in World War I, don't go back that far, it was called shell shock. Mm-hmm. And they honestly thought that it was caused from munitions bombardments, that the men were getting shell shocked, basically, and that's what caused their problems. And then they started finding out that it wasn't just being around explosions. So they came, not shell shock, battle fatigue. Mm-hmm. And they were actually marked with the C for cowardice and weren't allowed to get a pension back then. And now let's jump forward to where we are now. Now we realize that not just military can get it, first responders can be subjected to it, and anybody basically can be subjected to it. And even now they're starting to change the nomenclature from PTSD to PTSI. Getting away, and that stands for post-traumatic stress injury. They want to get away from people have a
the stigma of like you have a disorder. Ew.
Exactly, and they want to get away from that. And now it's an injury because it's exactly that. It's an injury to our psyche, to our mentalness. Our brains have been overwhelmed by a traumatic event, and that traumatic event can be something as a auto accident you're involved in, or compounded where daily, like with first responders or military, where you're daily going through multiple traumatic events, and they're getting starting to call that a complex PTSD. You've just got so many memories and things. And with PTSD, it's not that we don't want to forget, it's we can't forget.
Exactly.
The chemicals in our bodies and our brains, I mean, there's so many different things that occur, and we got this little part in our brain called the amygdala, and I don't want to get too scientific, but that little guy there in our brain, he's the one that tells you not to forget. And so we end up remembering these things and reliving them. And it affects all aspects of life. And
it really
coming out now, it's just coming out with knowing that everyday people, and I mean every day, I don't mean disrespect to all of us, just the general population.
Just all of us. Right. Every John, every Jane, every Sally, every Lisa, everyday people.
Exactly. And it could come from childhood trauma. It can come from, like I had said earlier, an auto accident. Now, PTSD takes time to be diagnosed. You can't just get into an auto accident and the next day say, I got PTSD. It doesn't work that way. It takes, unfortunately, it takes months because, you got to have recurring dreams and nightmares and triggers and flashbacks and things like that. And then they'll say, okay, well, we've ruled everything else out. You must have PTSD. And it's becoming, I'm sorry?
I was saying that you're definitely right. I think so many times people jokingly will refer to something that is a serious matter, be it that it is CPTSD, or if it's PTSD, or if it's GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. If we're suffering from something and we're on the serious side of it, that person isn't laughing about what's going on, but people in conversation will say, oh, well, that's just my PTSD. Oh, that's just my, my OCD. And they say it in a very joking way, but it's not a joking matter at all. And thank you for telling people you're not going to, just trip and fall and all of a sudden say, oh, I have PTSD. It does not.
Right.
It does not quite work like that. But, I want to, and you're kind of mentioning, touching on this, and I wanted to ask you, in your book you say damaged, and I wanted to ask you, why did you choose to use the word damaged?
Wow, that's exactly how I felt. I felt damaged because back when I first became a medic, and even before that, the guys and gals before me, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about PTSD. It was called burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And if you burned out, you were weak, and we joked about it. And I'm being serious. We were like, oh, he's going to burn out or she's going to burn out. They just can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it starts. Nobody wants to talk about it. And when in my book, in that first chapter, I go through a call that I had 31 years ago. And that's the one that really affected me. And that's why I felt damaged. I felt something was wrong with me. I physically hurt, I mentally hurt, and I couldn't get this call out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say that I'm going to throw this in right now. That first chapter in my book with that call, and I had to change names and things like that, of course. Keeping privacy. Mm-hmm. Last year, let me say, okay, I'm sorry. I get emotional. I haven't read my book since I last edited it because it's raw to me. So my first chapter goes through the worst call I ever had concerning the death of a child.
Yeah.
I met her mom last year. 30 years later, I met her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife just told me yesterday, she goes, I just remembered, I saw the shame on your face when you told her you were sorry that you didn't save her daughter. That's the way I felt. I felt guilty, and that's another symptom of PTSD. I felt guilty because I couldn't save this little girl.
Right.
There was nothing I could have done.
Of course.
But having her in my home, having the mom in my home, giving me a picture of that little girl, I finally saw her whole, and I got forgiveness, and I felt lighter, and I felt healed. I'm no longer damaged from that call, and I'm stronger because of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's almost time for us to go to break, but I just want to take a moment before we do to remind everyone or that's listening that if you believe that there is something that you're struggling with or that you're having a really hard time with, please understand that you do not need to go through this alone. There are professionals in your local area that are able to assist you. If you think that you're suffering from PTSD or you're having these thoughts that just won't go away, or you feel like your day-to-day life is triggering you or causing you to feel uneasy and you can't seem to get control back in your life, please reach out to a professional and let them help you with what's going on in your world. You said a mouthful there, James. Well, it is time for us, like we said, to go to break. If you would please, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we find you online?
The title of my book is Damaged, A First Responder's Experiences with Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. You can find it on Amazon in either the ebook Kindle edition or in a regular paperback. It's small, short, sweet, to the point book. It doesn't. Right. It cuts to the chase and gets right to it.
I love it.
Find me at Damage the Book on Facebook.
Alrighty, listeners, there now you know where you can pick up a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for our Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester, and today my guest is James Meuer. He's a retired paramedic and firefighter, as well as fire chaplain. He's written the book Damaged, A First Responder's Experiences with Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. That's right. We are talking about PTSD today. There are some other initials you may have heard it called by, PTSI, as well as CPTSD that we were talking about earlier. Now, James, some people may be familiar with the words that we're about to say, and others may not, and that is triggers and flashbacks. Now, for those of you who happen to be my clients, you guys, I teach you BLAST. Is one acronym for things that can trigger us, but there are so many things that can. James, can you tell us what are triggers and flashbacks? What does that mean to you?
A trigger can be anything, a sight, a smell, a sound that sends that person back to that traumatic event. And it totally, and I'm telling you from experience, it sends you back. You are in that call. You see that call. You smell that. You're back at the traumatic event, and it kind of locks you there. A flashback is, you're going around your daily routine, and pretty soon, boom, your brain just sends you back to that call. It's just you're there again, but you're there in your mind. It's like. See if I can explain this, where your brain just locks onto it and you're thinking about it, and that's different than the trigger. A trigger, is something that sends you there. I think I'm.
Well, no. I think you're doing a great job at it. To kind of pull it out a little bit. The same way that if grandmother used to make chocolate chip cookies whenever you came over to visit, or if mom used to make your favorite pot roast for Sunday dinners, there are things, like you were saying, that remind us of a time and a place, and that particular thing can trigger that memory, that emotion, the same way that we can hear a song and go, oh my gosh, I remember this is the song that came on at, my first kiss or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So what it is.
How many times have we been driving and we hear a song and it's like, I remember that in high school. I was at the football game, and that's what I'm talking about. You said it a lot better than I could have. Appreciate that.
No problem. And, I think people need to be really, really aware, too, that so many times we may be saying something quite innocently, but it could be a trigger for someone else, and that we need to be kind of mindful when we're talking to people, that we need to look at them when we talk to them, not just to make our place of dominance in the conversation, but to be aware of what's going on with people, and all of that. So thank you for mentioning that. Now, when you were experiencing something that either triggered you or you were experiencing a flashback, what did you do in those moments? Were you able to articulate it to your wife or explain to her, like, this is what's going on in my world? How did you deal with that?
My wife can see it before I can. She'll come over to me and I get the deer in the headlights look, and she'll just, are you okay, hon? Or just put her hand on me, or call my dog over to me.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about my dog. Oh my gosh. But a lot of times the brain doesn't tell you what it's going to do, and pretty soon, boom, you're back in that, you're having a flashback, and you've been triggered, and you're like, what the heck? How'd I get here?
Right.
And so I've learned to, for lack of a better term, make peace with them. So I write them out. I mean, when I have it, it's like, okay, I'm in it. Yeah, it's bothersome. Yeah, I might cry. Yeah, I might shake. But I know it's short-lived and it'll go away. But there's so many different ways to get through them. So many different things. The biggest thing is don't isolate and talk about it if you're experiencing these things.
You know, I have to give a shout out there, or a high five, to not only your wife, but to all the wives or the husbands, the parents, the siblings, even just the best friends that have learned the look, like you said, the deer in the headlight, or how you kind of get stuck, or space out, whatever you want to call it there. But they've learned that look, and they know that that's a time to kind of intervene and kind of help as best they can. So good job. Now,
thank you.
For so many people, they're saying, you know, that sounds like me, but how do I find some peace with it? How do I get to the point where I'm okay with experiencing what I'm experiencing? Where did you find peace?
I gotta say that the ultimate all peace, in my opinion, it comes from God, and you just He provides it if you find it. I did a lot of things to try and find peace. Some, you know, I'll admit I looked for it in alcohol, but I found it in God. I found my peace there. I do woodworking. I call it my therapy. I get out in my garage. I do woodwork. I make stuff. I give it away. If somebody wants to pay for it, great. If not, donate money to a charity.
Right.
That's my peace. My peace is in an open communication, not only with God, but with my friends. I mean, I know my friends, it's like, even the ones I've known for the last 30 years that have PTSD, we get together, we talk about it, and we share. You can't hold it in. You hold it in, you're going to explode. And then I'm going to also say that I think a lot of people think people with PTSD are powder kegs, and that's not the case.
Right.
We're not going to explode and do something terrible. I think that's just a big misunderstanding. Most people with PTSD are just trying to get through the day.
Right. And, you know, some of that is the movies, too. You know, you don't have time in the movie to build up to the episode. They need to kind of get to it in the movie. So people have a tendency to 0 to 60 in the movies. But you're right. Not everyone just blows up over one word or one sound or anything. It is usually a gradual progression to that point. Thank you for mentioning that. Now, you mentioned your dog, and I kind of want to say two things there. One, we're talking about PTSD that happens to occur in humans, but PTSD can affect our animals as well. Unfortunately, some of our military dogs, some of our police dogs do suffer from PTSD as well. But you are not talking about a dog that's suffering, but instead, Cosmo, if I understand correctly, is your service dog. He kind of does a different kind of duty. Tell me more about Cosmo.
Yes. Cosmo is my buddy. He is never away from me. He's my service dog. He is a PTSD service dog specifically trained for me to handle me and my PTSD. Oh my gosh. I have a broken back, so it's hard for me to bend over. He's a Great Dane. So he's a big boy.
Okay.
And he's brindle coated. So when I first got him, I loved it because he allowed me to get back outside. I didn't leave the house for years. I took him out. People stayed away from me, and that's what I wanted. He's got this dark face and these gold eyes, and he's big and he's brindle, and people. We went to a hardware store, and one of the employees, he stood like 10 feet away. Can I help you find anything?
Right.
But Cosmo is the biggest baby. And service dogs, oh my gosh, they give us such independence and freedom again. I was stuck in my house. And I'll give a shout out to my wife, Tracy. She is the one who found Cosmo. And the organization I got him from provides service animals free to first responders and veterans.
Wow.
They use rescue animals. So Cosmo was rescued from a pound out of Texas. Shout out to Texas. And he is always right here. If I go out the back door, he sits on the other side of that door. I can always count on him being right there. And PTSD service dogs, like I said before, are trained to do specific duties. If I'm having a bad dream, he's big enough that his paws hit the bed, I'm awake.
Right.
Or if I'm having, if I get into a flashback, he comes up and puts his face right in mine. And it's just enough, a touch to snap you back out and give you a companion that you always take with you and can get you out again.
Right,
I can't say enough about them.
I tell you, dogs are truly a blessing to us, and it's like we can't love them enough for the love that they give to us. They really do make the difference. I have to tell you, that's so beautiful. Good job, Cosmo. Good job.
Yeah.
Now, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and that is the topic of faith. How did your faith in God and renewing spirit, how did that help you get to the point where you knew I'm going to be okay?
No. There was a time when I was mad at God. I literally wanted nothing to do with him. I blamed him for that darkness I was in and for everything that was happening, my loss of family, my kids hating me. My relations. I mean, I blew up everything. I was angry. I was fighting. I was having a hard time holding a job. And I didn't want anything to do with it. And at the time, I was living in Texas, and I was going to give my mom a ride to church. And it's funny, I just got a new iPod, so I'm going to play with my new iPod out in the parking lot while Mom goes to church. And there's a lady there at the church, and she comes out and invites me in, and I'll say, no, you don't understand, Miss Barber. If I go in there, your church is going to explode. But it didn't. And I tell you, it was like, and like I explained in my book, the situation is that I was totally just renewed back to that faith. I was brought up in the Christian faith. My parents took us to church every Sunday and drag us there when we didn't want to go. And that set that basis. And so renewing my faith, and I never looked back. It was like I gave up things. I got clear of addiction and alcoholism. I did a complete 180. I'm like, all right, God, you want me back so bad, I'm going to do this thing. I don't know why you want me, but all right, here I am, so you can use me. And I started going out and helping others. I thought, man, if I could just help one person with writing this book, and I reached one person within a short time, and I'm still friends with him. And one of these days, we're Facebook friends, but it's like we're friends in real life. I mean, we follow each other, we talk. This experience of writing this book and reaching people and letting them know that they're not alone. There's more than us. Breaking the stigma of silence, because silence kills.
And speaking of such, we have about a minute left in the show, and I wanted to ask if there's any advice that you could give to any first responder dealing with or potentially going through PTSD. What would you say to them?
Have compassion on yourself. Take time out for yourself. Care for yourself. Talk about it. Don't isolate. If you need to, there's tons of groups and organizations I'm associated with. You can contact me. I'll talk to you. If you want to email me, I'm available. There's tons of other places available. Talk about it. Don't hide it. It's not anything to be ashamed of. You earn those scars.
Mhm. 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 Very well said. Well, James, I want to give you one more opportunity to remind everyone what is the title of your book, where can we pick up a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is Damaged, A First Responder's Experiences with PTSD, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. You can find it in the ebook edition or paperback on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook at Damage the Book, or on my regular Facebook, James Meuer. And just contact me. I'll talk with you.
I love it. Well, James Meuer, thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela today. I think we talked about a heavy topic, but I think we talked about something that needed to be talked about. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us today.
Oh, no, thank you. Appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you for tuning in as well. And as always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, be blessed in the Lord. Bye-bye.